He did, yeah.
Well, we are at 4:05, and we'll go ahead and call our time to order. Want to thank everyone for your adjustment in our clock. We have had a pretty consistent schedule of Wednesdays. Happy Monday. If you're tuning in, you didn't skip anything. We're actually meeting on Monday for this week and for next week on November the 22nd. So today is our November 15th redistricting committee, and thank you, commissioners, for adjusting. We have Dr. Kokithia Hill, who is joining us online. We recognize that Commissioner Llewellyn also communicated well in advance that this would be a travel time for him. And Dr. Hill is traveling as well, but will be and has made accommodations to join us on Zoom as best as she can. So we thank you for that. My name is Stephanie Smith. I serve as chair of the Redistricting Commission. Have had the privilege of being able to hear the many stories of community members as they have shared their time and their lived experiences to help shape this process. And so I want to thank each one of our community members, whether you're joining us in person. We have a few community members in the galley, or if you have joined us at any of our community sessions, spoken via written word on our feedback, on our web page, on the Kansas City, Missouri web page, or if you've reached out to commissioners and sent an email. So we want to thank you all for your time and attention to this matter. I'll go into my introduction and then I'll invite the other commissioners and then we'll move forward with our, hey, welcome friends.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. And so once again, Stephanie Smith, chair. I am a co-founder and managing partner of SoFix Solutions. We're a change management firm based in Kansas City, Missouri. We help organizations navigate change through an equity lens. I'm also a first district representative and have lived in the Northland 10 years or more. I don't think I've said that, and there was a question. So about 10 years or more, and my children have been able to be educated in the Northland as well. I'll go to Commissioner Kellum. Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon, Mike Kellum, First District Representative. Lived in the Northland for 8+ years. Worked for a Midwest-based engineering firm here in Kansas City, and looking forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rucker.
Lovely jacket, Commissioner Kellum.
Nice.
Outstanding.
Very Obama S10.
Yes, yes.
Nice.
Up here. Martin Rucker, Second District Representative, small business owner, and devoted public servant. Enjoyed the process thus far and look forward to continuing to serve.
Good afternoon, Pedro Zamora, Executive Director for the Hispanic Economic Development Corporation. Lifelong resident, 57 years in Kansas City, but it's a wonderful city to raise a family and be born in.
Thank you.
I'm Clinton Adams. I'm the 3rd District Representative, lifelong resident of the 3rd District, and I'm a lawyer here in the city.
I just want to say that Mike's socks are better than all of our socks. For the record, I wore some Kansas City socks to a public hearing and nobody noticed. But my name is Reed Day. I'm an attorney in town, 6th District resident, and that's where I've been for the majority of my life, minus a couple years for school. I'm an attorney in town. I already said that. I think that's about it.
Say it twice. We love it.
I'm Vicki Notice. I represent the 4th District on the commission. I'm a lifelong resident of Kansas City, Missouri. My kids have been raised in Kansas City, Missouri as well. I'm a partner in a small consulting firm that does community and urban planning.
Thank you, Commissioner Notice. Commissioner Hill, are you available and can introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you all. Kokithia Hill, representing the 5th District. CEO of Black KC, which is an education nonprofit, former councilwoman, and just excited to hear the discussion today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Once again, want to acknowledge the time and support of Commissioner Chris Llewellyn. He represents, I'm scrolling through to make sure I get it right, but he represents the 6th District. He's an investor and restaurant owner of the Well Restaurant Group and Lou's Charlie Hoopers. And so we want to thank him for his effort that he's been putting in this. So we'll start out with our common language and grounding. We do this at the beginning of each of our meetings just to continue to demystify this process and to bring understanding to it. So the goal of redistricting is to provide equality in the political process. I like to start there because so much of our conversations have really been centered around representation and how we can best represent the voices of our neighbors. There are some particular parameters that this commission is using to guide this process, and one is to create ideal districts. So as best we can, we want to make sure that this growth that Kansas City has seen of about 43,000 community members, that we are spreading that as equally as possible across the 6 districts. At this point, there are 6 councilmatic districts. And so you take that number, which is at 508,090 people, give or take, and you divide it by 6. That number is 84,681. So that's kind of like our benchmark number, just to give you an idea. There is a concept called the 10% rule. What that means is that between the 6 districts, it cannot be more than a 10% spread in what the population looks like. However, ongoing best practice has been to get that to as close as 0 as we can. But you'll see that number at the top of all of the mapping scenarios that are posted on our on the Kansas City, Missouri webpage. We also want to do our best to make sure that the redrawing is done as contiguous and as compact as possible, so that you just don't see any random picking up of pins and dropping it back down. And so that is a really great mark for us. And then we always want to be mindful, and hopefully if you've been following this process with the commissioners, we want to be mindful of upholding the Voting Rights Act. And so making sure that we are honoring and not writing out or creating lines that disrupt that protected voting block. So we want to make sure that we are being thoughtful about that. If you've been joining us throughout our time, it has been our goal to be as transparent and open as possible in communicating what are the kind of consensus of priority. And we know that there are various priorities, as there are so many community members. And so that has been the great task. And so you've heard us talk about how this process is just a process of compromise, really us being centered on the priorities, understanding that there are various needs in this. So commissioners, anything that you'd like to add to that common language and grounding that I may have overlooked? Data-driven, thank you. We've been able to use a good amount of data and support from and with the city staff team. They've been amazing. Brian and Cal and Beth and Melissa in this process. So thank you all to the city staff for all the great work that you all are doing. And then, of course, all of our team that does the behind the scenes and making sure that we have Zoom, making sure people get heard and signed in. Thank you so much to that team as well. And so those data points you can also find on the Kansas City, Missouri Redistricting webpage. We have been able to leverage median income, market value analysis, also neighborhood precincts. So it's been a good amount of data that has also been able to be leveraged. So thank you, Commissioner Zamora, for that reminder. So with that, any media engagements, media requests or engagement requests that you'd like to share?
engagement, I think, my fellow commissioner, 4th District Commissioner, with the Plaza Rotary on Friday.
The 19th, I think.
And-
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're attending,
You are.
correct?
oh, I'm attending.
Yes.
Somehow I saw your name on there, so I guess I'm attending. so.
I cannot attend that one.
Okay, I will be attending. so.
Thank you for that. You have been steadfast to that. Thank you. There's all.
You gonna do the Citizens Association, or you were gonna do that, or you did that, or?
Can you repeat that again?
Did somebody do the Citizens Association or something, I thought I heard about, or?
Yes.
Did you talk about that
Door
last
there.
one?
I am with Reed and Dr. Hill,
Okay.
and we asked several
Yep.
other people to equal 4, but they were not able to attend, so. So there is a slot if somebody wants to come.
Rucker Keller? I'm not available. Thank you for that.
I have no interest in doing it.
That's Thursday night, I think it's 6, and it's on Zoom,
Okay.
and open to public, I think.
Thank you for that team for being able to step in for that. A request was made of myself to join a local organization as they talk broadly about redistricting, both on the congressional and the local level. And so that'll be, I think it's scheduled for November the 23rd. So it is several organizations. The community organization that reached out to me is Links Incorporated, the Jackson County Links Incorporated. Thank you. Any other engagements or media requests? All right, just a reminder, we've been really being able to be guided by our timeline. Today being November 15th, we're here to continue to deliberate. We've been able to do that with the help of our community members and their feedback. As we, of course, move towards the selection of one map from this commission that will then be presented to council. And also want to give a heads up. We've been having kind of this moving target of a date that we're working to get confirmed. I know Melissa is working diligently with the mayor's office and the council. That date I announced was not October, December the 8th. That may change to December the 7th. So what I will ask our commissioners to do is to stay fluid and ready for that. It'll be sometime that week, or at least that is what it is looking like. It could be December the 7th or the 8th. Once I get confirmation, I'll be sure to share it to you as soon as I get it. And just want to thank you in advance for your flexibility. I know your time is extremely valuable, and you put a lot of effort in this and want to be part of that presentation. And so we'll do our best to get that communicated.
And that's still a committee hearing, or is it a business?
Do you have more insight, Melissa?
I believe it will be a committee hearing. They might just reschedule it from that Wednesday to Tuesday. And so as of right now, it will still be a committee hearing, and kind of the parameters, the general parameters of the presentation, you all can kind of make it look the way that you want to, as long as the rationale behind the maps and proposed changes are explained to council or the committee that you will be testifying in front of. So
That's an open public meeting
Yes.
for people who are interested.
yes, it will be an open public meeting, and public comment will also be taken in that forum as well.
Will this committee be consisting of representatives from each district?
No, so it will either be the finance committee, which is comprised of different council members from different districts, but every single council district is not represented on every committee.
May I ask a
If that
question?
makes sense.
Is there a rationale behind it being the finance committee rather than neighborhood?
Well, the committee, I was just giving an example, the
Yeah.
committee that you all will be
Well, I guess
appearing
that-
before has not been definitively
Gotcha.
decided.
Okay, that was my question, I guess.
Yes.
Question.
And so as soon as I get that information, team, I will be sharing that with you. We have had conversations, and I have expressed my my rapid need. The rapid need for this to be communicated well. Any other questions? As it relates, as you can see on your agenda, we have on there presentation considerations. This question was also broached last week. So as Melissa has outlined, of course, we want to be sure to articulate our rationale for our map recommendations. And then I also think that we have a responsibility. As I stated earlier in my opening, we have heard many thoughts and considerations from our neighbors. And so for us to be good stewards of what we have heard, even if it did not create or it doesn't show up in a tangible way through the mapping, we still want to honor what our neighbors have heard. We know that this has been a lot of hard decision making. So we can make sure that we include those community considerations in our report as well. Are there any other questions or comments about your desire for the presentation and what you would like to ensure that it has included? Okay. So if any comes up, feel free to share that with me. I'm happy to see our attorneys who have been walking with us in this process along the way. Thank you, Matt and Emily, for your support. If there's any update, I'm going to turn it over to Cal, but I just want to give a heads up to our city attorneys that there may be a question about some of the flow as it relates to one of the configurations of the map that we will seek your comment on in some form or fashion, and we recognize or understand if there's an additional memo or time for a memo that would need to be created. But when we get there, we'll toss it to you. Okay? So with that, Cal, if you can walk us through, and once again, thank you, Cal and Brian, for all of the time that you all have been putting into this.
Good evening, everybody. We sent out an email with all of the maps on there. We're really only talking about 2, even though there's 5 on here. And the reason we wanted to put all 5 on here is set some context about how we got to the decision points on the 2 maps we're looking at. So if you look at the screen right now, it says 8.41, and it says byte next to it. So that refers to this area right there, and I'll zoom into these in a moment. Okay. 8.41, which says bump, and there's a difference right here. Both of those 2 helped inform how we would change 8.42, along with some of the recommendations you guys had as well. And I would suggest probably the conversation on that one becomes how we deal with this section and whether or not the additional suggestions you guys asked made sense or not. 8.61 is basically the same series. It's just looking at a different configuration of districts 1 and 2. And then 8.62 is basically the same considerations you guys had, with some slight deviations on that one. So I'm going to just pull up 8.41 real quick. This is what we presented last time. This one's referred to as the byte. Everything on this one is basically the same as the next map. When we're referring to the distinction, it really has to do with this small piece right here. This is the community of Gladstone. There is a piece that is just not contiguous, and that is part of the conversation we were having with our law department as to whether or not that needed to be or that represented any problem as we went forward. And we can yield to you guys, or we can move on to the next map.
I would like to yield to our city attorneys for any feedback. And the question is, are we abiding within our guidance for this part that may be perceived as non-contiguous? A lot of consternation on your face.
No, it's
Do you
fine.
need me to clarify?
Matt Gelati with the City Attorney's Office. Obviously, the body's entitled to legal counsel in a closed session if it wants it. If it doesn't, I'm happy to talk about it in a historical context. Perhaps that's a better way to address it in this setting. The committee's asking for a black letter kind of analysis of this map. And I would suggest to you that there's historical context for having separate parcels in the 5th District from 1991 until about 2000, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And so Missouri state law, statute 82-150 says that the properties have to be compacted adjacent. Contiguous is perhaps a different thought, but the statute in Missouri is one of adjacency. And historically, our office has rationalized for the folks who have had to engage in this work previously that you treat a there's no way one can comply with that statute in a meaningful manner while giving the council the flexibility to make the legislative and political decisions it needs to without understanding Kansas City's annexation history relative to its charter city charge under RSMO Chapter 82. And so from that perspective, we have always rationalized that as long as it's non-city property in the middle, you would treat Gladstone or Raytown or North Kansas City, similarly situated communities, much like a body of water or a giant boulder or something of non-city parcel. And so one way to look at it is to say that if you remove Gladstone and put the pieces together, they are otherwise adjacent, is one way to look at it.
Okay, any additional questions, Commissioner? Was that clear as mud for you, Rucker? I see your face.
I'm not an attorney, clearly, and so when I see it that it's not contiguous, I just wonder if we're going to get challenged in court if this map were to pass city council, and then what would happen after that? So, are you saying that it doesn't matter that they don't touch since Gladstone's there? It's perceived as though they do, and we're well within our rights to proceed with this map, or that it will be challenged if we proceed with this map?
Again, the body's entitled to legal counsel in a closed session. Now, if the body does not want to engage in that action, I'm happy to do my best to articulate that I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future, right? I can tell you that there are no reported decisions interpreting 82-150 on the issue of adjacency. So again, that's our best articulation that how we've rationalized that statute in light of the fact that that statute applies to about 37 cities in the state of Missouri, Kansas City being one of them, and that you can't interpret that statute without appreciating Kansas City's annexation.
Are there any other cities in Missouri that have non-contiguous districts such as this that were challenged and won?
I couldn't tell you. Honestly.
Couldn't tell.
Don't know.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Commissioner Adam. Thank you, Rucker.
I remember when the 5th district was not contiguous, and I don't think anybody challenged it, but from a practical standpoint, I think I kind of concur with the with the legal department's interpretation. However, back in those days, they had to do it that way. I think for the most part, we have alternatives here that can maybe accomplish some of our goals without even creating a problem. But I think they can make it geographically contiguous without changing the population balance by. I think some geographical changes they can make by connecting the district, by putting those streets and roadways connected there without having much of an impact on the population. However, I think there's some other alternatives here that have been presented. And I have a different interpretation of what I consider to be contiguous, a definition. And that is, if you should be able to drive from one part of the district to another part of the district without leaving the district. If you can do that, the district is connected, it's contiguous. If you can't do that, it's not contiguous. This district here, in my view, is not contiguous, and I don't think that we should even, as a proponent of this configuration and initially supportive of it, if they can't be connected geographically, I don't think we should even give it much consideration.
Thank you. Other thoughts or considerations and questions for the council? And I did hear you. It may be, and I'll leave it to the commissioners as we conclude, if we want to go to closed session to have a further discussion about it.
Sure.
So thank you for that.
I would only add that I think Commissioner Adams highlights, I think, some historically, not necessarily from a legal perspective,
Right.
but historically, I would have to agree with his assessment that there were other drivers, other constitutional considerations that drove the analysis associated with that. And I think if you were to broach that same topic here, you'd have to ask yourself, what are some similarities to that? So again, we'll be available if there are additional questions.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners, regarding the legal? All right, Cal, feel free to continue with 8.41 if there's any additional thought before we move to the next.
So 8.41, excuse me, we did have another configuration of it that is affectionately called bump. And basically what that does is it takes out the estates of Northbrook, or the Northbrook neighborhoods, which is over on the far east side, and it substitutes the area that's just where Metro North Mall used to be, that neighborhood. And what that allows us to do is keep the populations of all 6 districts pretty close, and does make it contiguous.
Any questions or comments, commissioners, about 8.41 bump?
Did it have any impact on the southern part? I thought there were some changes made in the southern part too.
No,
Oh,
these two changes did not. The only change on here would be those two
Okay.
communities ended up switching places on there. So that's where we started from on 8.41. The questions that we were asked to try to make those maps a little better are in 8.4.2, and those were to see if there was a way, and that'd be the map that all of you have in your packets. These are slightly different than what we've done in the past. On these, we drew little black circles around those things that we were asked to change. And the reason we did that at this phase is they were so modest in nature, we wanted to really isolate down to what those things were. These do not have to happen as a pair. They can happen individually, or they can happen not at all. It's entirely up to this group. And what 8.42 shows is the bump, but it could also be modified to look like the bite. So those changes were to include the Southmoreland area. And I've zoomed into it on the screen. That adds about 1,000 people. And what that does to the numbers is it makes 4 and 5 a little heavy and 6 a little light. And 5 is the one that really gets the extra population. And 6 is a little on the modest size as you go forward. Sorry, let me zoom up here. But they are within the 10% at right a little less than the mid at 4.55%. 19% Hispanic in District 3, 22% in District 4, 54% Black or African American in District 3, and 56 in District 5. So pretty balanced districts. It's really just whether or not those changes are something the group wants to go with. The other conversation, this is one where we had commissioners from the 6th District and the 5th District that had slightly different takes on it. And it was adding the Royal Oaks community into the 5th District to get more of the Hickman Mills community within one district. And that added 784 people. Did not really impact percentages a great deal.
I'd like to pause and go to Dr. Hill, see if we can capture her voice, if she's still available, for any comments related to 8.4.2, the configuration that happened in Royal Oak. So, Commissioner Hill, are you available?
Yes, hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm going through security. But, I spoke to folks who had requested adding the Royal Oaks as well as my 6th District colleague. And that leaves our 5th District very heavy. In fact, I think it's one of the heaviest councilmatic districts. And while we are definitely sensitive to the Hickman Mills community, we felt like we have worked with them to try to compromise. But at this point, I am not supportive of adding the Royal Oaks neighborhood from the 6th to the 5th.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. I also like to turn it to Commissioner Day, 6th District for consideration.
Oh, thank you for putting me on the spot as I
Yes.
sit here and try to think about it. I guess, Kyle, my question was, the 4.5% deviation, we see that simply by looking at the area around 43rd and Main and then simply looking at this Royal Oaks neighborhood.
Yeah, so that changes both of those potential corrections in there. If you were doing just one or the other, you'd simply take
Percent or
that
something.
portion out and redo the math. So yeah, if you were not interested in the Southmoreland area for whatever reason, you'd take 1,000. Sorry, and you put it back in there. And
Yeah. So we'd be somewhere between the 1.5% that I see on some of these other maps and the 4.5%.
little closer. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I
Honestly, it's really close to what it was with 8.41 last time.
the other without this light bump stuff like that we looked at last meeting.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I don't know that I have a direct comment right now. I just, everybody feels like they're getting stretched. Everybody feels like they're getting pulled in different directions. I hear Dr. Hill. Yeah, I got to keep looking at this, Stephanie.
Okay. Other considerations,
Yeah,
Adam?
I spoke with the president of the Hickman Middle School Board and the vice president of the Hickman Middle School Board as late as this morning, and I showed them the configuration that I had, which was 8.4.1, and they were perfectly content and satisfied. Matter of fact, one of them didn't even want to go west of 71. They were content with the configuration that we have here going to Grandview Road. And I frankly don't see any need to keep the 6th district so light when the 6th district had to gain more population than any other district this last time. Why would we go in keeping them light already by even adding that 800 people over? So I support Commissioner Hills or concur with her concern. Valve is already heavy. I don't see any need to make it heavier. Just accommodate that one little neighborhood or that one neighborhood. Most of the district Hickman Middle School District is into the 5th district now.
You're touching on what my concern is with the 6th district being I mean, it makes no sense to have the 6th district be the lightest of all these. It just doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other considerations? I want to also move it to District 4. Commissioner Zamora and Notice, if you're prepared to speak first about the changes.
I have a question. On the southern boundary of 4 where it meets 6, the new boundary, this shows going from Maine over to Troost as a straight line, correct? So everything north of that is still in 4 and everything south of that is in 6.
Yep, follows, Cleve River. Yep,
Puts Hyde Park back. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Southern Hyde Park and all of Southmoreland, right?
that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the past 8.4.1, Southmoreland was kind of split up, so
And so
this-
is Hyde Park.
So-
They were both.
And that still leaves, that has the Nelson in the 4th, if I'm thinking correctly, right? Because it's sitting right above Emmanuel Cleaver.
Boulevard.
Kyle's got the graphics. I like it.
Yep.
Okay.
No
And you're
people,
using-
but the institution would be in there.
Sure.
Any other questions or concerns around the 8.42 shift for Southmoreland?
Be happy to give to the 6th district so they won't be so light. If we can accommodate getting the Independence Avenue southern edge of 4th district, strengthening the percentages for the minority Latino community. We have 16% in District 3 and 18%, I think, somewhere in that District 4. And we still have to address that.
What map are you referencing?
842?
8.42. I'm looking at 22% in 4th district.
21% of 21 and 19 and 3
Right. Well,
Latino population.
we can go down, but it's 21.94.
21.9.
So 22% for
Need to round up.
yeah. I mean, well, that's been consistent with how we've rounded all of our other percentiles.
Right.
So 22% for District 4 and 19%. We won't move that to 20. See, we're not gonna front on that. That we're gonna go
My
down.
point exactly, and that's my point is, in conversations that we try to make the 3rd and get them closer to a higher percentage of over 55% in the district, in the 3rd district, over 55%. We're at 53% there.
54% down here.
Yeah,
I'd like to,
54.
pick up another percent or two, that'd be great, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so I'm open to being high on the 4th. We're accommodating neighborhoods. And as both Commissioner Notice and I say, we give a lot, but now we're down to the incremental changes that mean a lot. That mean opportunity, that means opportunities for a minority opportunity vote and an elected seat. So that's my only concern, is we're now just negotiating percentage of populations that can accommodate both the fourth and the third. So that's the only thing I would ask to consider as we
Was-
fine-tune these maps.
Right, I appreciate that. So as you kind of think about this in our 25th, maybe 30th iteration of these maps, moving these lines one street, one block here and there, have either of you or any of us, for that matter, because we share the desire to want to bolster that percentage, is there a configuration based upon the streets that has not been considered that can get us there? Because a lot has been considered that takes us into places that ultimately we've all agreed no to.
Big traditional boundaries have been discussed. We haven't discussed
So small.
census block boundaries. We've discussed streets, we've discussed institutional, traditional boundaries within our districts, but we have not really fine-tuned down to where I think third and fourth could complement each other and not compete moving forward.
Well, tell me more. Do you have?
Yeah, there's some districts, and I could pull it up on my computer here, that just right off Independence Avenue, there's some census blocks there that do accommodate that growth, the shift of the Latino voters into the fourth district from the third district that will bring the third district into above the 55% we're looking at. And it would also add a population into the fourth. Unfortunately, it adds population into the
Right.
fourth. Plain and simple. There's no beating around the bush there.
And it'll make fourth heavier.
Heavier. But we also know that the fourth will be heavy next year.
Right.
Yeah, fourth's already heavy.
Right.
Fourth's heavy. So I would just leave that on the table for conversation.
Well, this is the line, and we're like right here.
We
So
are-
we're almost at our point,
we
right?
are, all
So we
I'm
gotta-
saying is that there's potentially 3 census tracts, voting blocks that can be moved into the fourth district that can accommodate a percentage increase, 2 percentage increases for the third district for the African American vote, and strengthen the Latinos in 4.
And if we're looking at that, what impact would it have if we keep the line at
southern line.
43rd Street like it was, which is what I like. I like straight lines, clean lines, to the extent we can do that. That's why I don't like the bump, but, we may have to do that. Do we have to have this bump out, or this is more like a little pimple, around from 43rd to 45th Street around Main? Just to get Southmoreland in there? I know that familiar with that neighborhood over there, the community, and some of the people over there, they're pretty well connected. They can protect their interests if they're split between 2 districts. It might even be stronger for that neighborhood. I mean, if Vicki, that's your issue, and I'm sensitive to it. But is it really that important that we draw the line, that we zigzag down Main to 45th Street and back over? Can we just go straight across 43rd Street?
Well,
There's a few blocks there. I don't know how many people. You say how many people is it here?
It's 1,000.
1,020 people.
I'll speak on it after Vicky does.
if we, the 43rd straight line thing is fine on a map, but on the ground, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's not just because of the neighborhoods, that's because of the way it runs and what's on either side of it. So, I mean, we're kind of wasting the boundary line, if you know what I mean, when we get over past Maine. But this gets, 1,000 people gets 3 neighborhoods basically back together and in 4, while the neighborhoods west of Maine will go on into 6. So it was kind of a balance between who we were. This is a pretty radical shift on the south end, and so this was a balance of trying to keep midtown neighborhoods intact, and it makes more sense on the ground. But I think for 1,000 people, we can talk about it. But I think it's already been compromised a lot on this end. So
But by moving that 1,000 people, you might help the voting, representation efforts of Latinos in the 4th and African Americans in the 3rd. Might be closer to getting us to the 55%. I told you earlier, and historically, we always, to protect the minorities, it's kind of been like an unwritten rule. We all agree that we need to be 60% in the district. That's what we've always done with all you go back and look at these maps. the 3rd and 5. When we left there, we always left with 3 and 5 being 60%. We're down now to under 55, at least in the 3rd. We're around 57, I guess, in the 5th. So I would like to try to get closer to that. And we also, I thought we had a kind of a general consensus that we want to try to help get the highest percentage of Latinos into 4 as we possibly can, to at least give them an opportunity for greater voice. If that trade-off that Pedro was talking about, I haven't seen it. I'm just taking his word for it. I know he's been studying this closely. If that does that, keep an open mind to it at least to see, what's more important to us, the neighborhood interests or giving voice to minority communities.
I will be happy to keep an open mind to it. I'd like to see if this is enough people to make any difference
Right.
on that argument, and if it's not, then I think it would be fair to these guys to try and at least respect, because we're chopping up actually 6 or 7 neighborhoods,
It's
and
a
I
lot
was
more
trying
than-
to
it's a
keep-
lot more than
I don't-
3.
I don't
trying to
disagree
keep
with
a
that.
couple of
It's a
them
lot more than 3.
I understand.
together. But I'm open to talking about it if that makes enough difference.
I like to see how it weighs out back and
Okay.
forth, but I agree with you, and I would like to keep the neighborhood together like that if we could. If the trade-off helps the Latinos and it helps the blacks in 3,
Yeah,
unless my community where I live in 3, it helps us. I would like to think about that and look, get some thought to that. I probably come down on the side of making the trade-off. If it's not going to have a material impact on it, then I don't have a problem.
Cal and Brian, my question is, does this take us back to a map that we've already left behind and gets us back into what happens to the southern third?
It likely gets us close to one of those scenarios. So what I'll say is, if Pedro, you can send us the blocks, and we've been using blocks for about a month now because we moved away from those. It allowed us a little more granularity on things. If you can send us those blocks you want us to put in there, we'll pull them in, and there won't be any questions about what they do to the maps. We'll have the numbers. So
Okay.
you can even
I think I've got them here. I'll send them over to you.
that works great. As far as whether or not
Go ahead, Dr. Hill. I'm sorry, excuse me, Cal.
Yep.
Oh, no, I was just gonna, before you guys wrap up, I was gonna say, I am supportive of increasing the minority representation in, Council District 3. I do wanna just be mindful about that southern border. I mean, right now, you've got it where it goes like 51st to 53rd to 55th to 56th. And, my community really wanted that to be up to 51st. Well, I understand why the 3rd has to come down the southern boundary, but I want to be careful that we don't go past that, right? Like that's not the tool to use,
Correct.
if possible.
I heard you the first time. You told me before we couldn't do that. I heard you.
Right.
I wanted to come to 55th Street, remember? And you told me no,
Yes.
and so I backed off.
So my
Yeah,
reminder,
you can't have any of our northern boundaries.
Yeah.
No,
my
thank you so
reminder
much.
to you all is that when we pull down and take more population numbers from the 3rd district for the consideration that Commissioner Zamora will bring us, that what has happened is that we've moved that southern line because of how we have cycled through these conversations. That's why I restated that. So once again, what I appreciate is the consistency of the interest that is brought. What my task is to remind us from whence we have come, because we've had similar conversations. But I've heard Cal ask for those. I'll be looking for those blocks as well, so that we can see that. We know that part of our kind of accountability circle is to hold this line, this southern 3rd district line. And I'm hearing Commissioner Notice and Commissioner Day, I'd like to hear more from you when you said that you had a comment about the Southmoreland, but I'm hearing that there may be some flexibility there if that can happen, but we recognize that there's been some give and take already. So Commissioner Day, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I won't belabor it too long, but the same how some people feel stretched with their districts. That's my issue with Southmoreland, with South Hyde Park getting connected to Central Hyde Park and North Hyde Park. When we talk about going 43rd all the way over, you're chopping up that the Hyde Park neighborhood there, and it's really becoming. I mean, Vicky just used the words Midtown neighborhoods, and I'm not trying to just pick on words here, but that's when you really start to those are different neighborhoods
Yeah.
than anything. Take the plaza and go south. Those are just pure different neighborhoods, and then they're really different than South Kansas City. It's totally different. So that's the one thing that I wanted to add to highlight how stretched that is in the midtown nature of those neighborhoods versus the rest of what is in the 6th district.
So are you saying that you would be for or against that?
I'd be against that coming
Against
into
that
the
change.
6th. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're more compatible with the fourth.
Absolutely they are.
No, I understand.
So you saying keep that Southmoreland, the 842 in 4th?
Yeah,
'Cause right
this
now
is-
it's been moved to 4th.
Yes, the main going down Main and using a manual cleaver is something I've kind of been looking at for a week and a half or so. This shows me that it can be done and it shows me what that number would look like. So yeah, I
So-
like that.
So you're
divide.
for this change, Vicky? I'm hearing you're not. You're fine with it, but let's see what happens to the Latino.
Total numbers.
Yeah, numbers. And then I'm hearing no for the Royal Oaks, just because I'm looking at the 8.42 as we move ourselves further north to my fellow North representative commissioners. Understanding that because we are talking about 8.4, I understand that you are not in favor, at least from what I've heard from the horizontal, but from this horizontal scenario, any thoughts about the bump versus the bite, or any consideration that you want to add to this? Either one.
I can start. I would say that I would agree that there are a lot of concerns regarding the bite scenario.
Bite, okay.
So I would echo the comments that were made earlier regarding, I think it makes more sense for it to be the bump if you were to do that. I'm not in favor of 8.4, but if we were to do that, that would be the way to do it.
You said the bump is
Um,
preferable to the bite.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Thank you. Recognizing and wanting to reiterate and note your non-agreement with 8.4. Commissioner Rucker?
Yeah, I would just echo everything Mike said and not drag it out any further.
Okay, thank you. All right, Cal, any other consideration for this? Thank you for kind of walking through 4.1 and 2.
Yeah, real quick, back to, I'm gonna look smart here, but it's not coming from me, I'm pointing to Brian. It is 1.2, basically gets us to 25% Hispanic. Let me pull up that one. But that also did pull the 3rd district down. And when I mean down, I mean just geographically.
We got the 63rd Street, didn't it? Is that the one that took us up?
Yeah, it takes us to 57.
That one was pretty low.
Yeah.
It was past our target, or the
Yeah. So,
consensus target.
and don't look much past Campbell either. You're really looking at the relationship between these two districts. And that's kind of the trade-off. So it's really which one are you selecting for? More than likely, when we add those in there, and we'll still add them in and look at them, it's going to create a map that we've
Looked at already.
pretty much, when it's relating to the relationship between those two groups in those two districts.
It's 1.2 is one of the original maps.
Right.
It is, yep.
That's right.
And that boundary between 4 and 6 is a problem for them and a problem
Well,
for
yeah,
4.
I mean, 39.
It took it all the way to 39.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, right. I
That
like
puts
that, yeah, that's
all
right.
of Westport and all the Midtown areas
Yes,
into.
exactly.
No, I think we pretty much at least have a consensus, I think, amongst a lot of us, that we should be around 43rd, 45th Street. Not going any further north than that over in the 6th district.
And Commissioner Adams, your point about that, I mean, when we look at these maps, if we could track, and I've been tracking, I know some of you all have been as well, but especially our city team members, of what these consensus points are, the goal has been that the maps that you see in front of you really highlight what those consensus points have been, then they're prioritized. And that's why some make it and some don't. So with that, Commissioner Cal, City Staff Member Cal, 8.61, 8.62.
So 8.61 and 8.62 are basically the same conversation we just worked through, minus the conversation, so I'm just gonna go to 8.62. The only change here is how districts 1 and districts 2 are configured. Oops.
Everything else is.
Everything else is the same. What this does is create a map that's pretty balanced as it goes through, especially between those districts. 4 and 5 are the areas. 5 and 6 are the areas that create the differences. And once again, that's because of those conversations we've already had about Southmoreland, Hyde Park, and Royal Oaks. So
But there is more going into 4 under 8.62 than on the other ones.
You mean that number, our population number?
Well, I'm just looking at the neighborhood, where the neighborhood lines are. Those are all the same, 8.41 and 8.62.
think that was just due to the configuration of that Northland vertical split. Just changed a little bit with giving and taking neighborhoods in the Northland, which changed that 4th district population number a little bit.
Do you know how much? Do you know how much?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What was the high part of what you all were saying? I didn't hear it.
I was looking at how 8.62's north of the river 2 districts are different on how they affect 4's north of the river
Okay.
portion. And if it was giving us more, and they were light, which is what I'm trying to look at, as if that would help solve our problem on the southern end.
According to the new maps, 8.62 and 8.42 are the exact same populations in 4.
Well, they're in, yeah, but they're not.
The boundaries look the same
Oh,
to me,
okay,
too.
Okay,
It's highlighted in the different colors.
okay, yeah.
It looks, got notice of what Kyle said, that nothing anywhere else has changed on here except for
The line.
horizontal versus vertical split. Yeah.
So team, it sounds like we'll take a look at Pedro's considerations for what those blocks are to see if that can happen and what that does. You know, I just recall Commissioner Adams, you saying that there is willingness for 3rd to be heavy, but really no need for 3rd to turn out light in this, especially as we have all acknowledged that it has been really great growth, trends of growth in 1, 2, and 4. And so I'll just remind us of that, especially as Brian and Cal will be working to see what we can do. But that'll likely be what we'll face, but we can kind of see what those numbers are. Any considerations, we will not be taking any vote or anything today. We wanted to use this additional time for additional considerations. I did send the most recent feedback pieces from the web page and an email that was sent to me, which really echoes a lot of what we have heard throughout the community. And I'll leave it to other voices if you feel like there was something massively different in that, that we want to lift up as we continue to work out between iteration of 8.4 or 8.6. So any other considerations?
Madam Chair, if I
Please.
could. Just regarding the public comment that was received last week, I believe it was 11:10 through 11:15. I just want to note on the record, while the comments mirror in large majority, there are some uniqueness to some of them regarding some of the points that we've heard from folks, whether they favor a vertical or horizontal split. There were 33 additional comments that were in support of the vertical split versus 14 additional horizontal comments. Regarding the Northland vertical horizontal split. I do want that to be noted. I think as we're giving credence to public comment that's received, whether it's in person or via the website, I think we've put a lot of weight to that, so I'd like that to be noted. I would also had a question. Kyle, can you show me where the zip code 64117 is?
I should know it, but yeah, give me a moment.
I'm just curious because I don't know.
Like North Kansas City.
It is.
Oh, that Cerner curve. I don't know it either.
117.
I can't see your cursor.
Yeah. It's right above that line,
Okay.
kind of diagonally.
What district does that fall into?
Currently, it is in District 1 and maybe District 2 as well, because that's the dividing line for both.
Okay. So it is,
Oh, no, sorry, I'm sorry. It is all in currently it's all in District 1. So I'm going to get up. Sorry, Beth.
Yell.
Yeah, just yell. It's this piece right here.
okay. So it runs over to 435?
Council districts currently come down through here, District 4,
Okay.
District 1, District 2 is over there.
Okay. And then what's to the west? Is that is X64118?
To the west of that
4181?
is 116.
16. Okay.
116 is split by I-29, I-35 split right there.
Gotcha. Okay. I did not know exactly where that was, and I didn't have time to look that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Callum. Other considerations or thoughts?
I would just like to draw also attention to exactly what Commissioner Kellum said, and just to add to that, not to belabor it, but of the 14 comments that were for the horizontal split, 11 of them came from one zip code. And so I want them to know that we do hear them. And we've talked about voices that haven't been heard and being represented, and we've talked about representation. And while I think this is an opportunity for a certain portion of the Northland to recognize that they've been heard and consult with their current council person and not even wait until the next redistricting process. But I would also just caution us to not allow one predominantly group in one portion of the Northland to make the decision or control the decision for the entire Northland. It's 35% of the city, I believe, in population, and I just don't think, while I do believe their voice is incredibly important, and I believe our council people have heard that, and they should be paying attention to them, I don't think that one group in one part of the Northland should be the decision driver for the entire makeup of the new councilmanic districts. And I believe Commissioner Adams spoke to this from the first meeting when John Sharp was organized the group out south in the Hickman Mills. And while it's extremely important, we can't allow one person or one group with a great power of organization to control the entire process just because they have the loudest voice. And even in keeping with this, they don't have the loudest voice. There was 34 people from all throughout the Northland that spoke otherwise. And so, again, I just want to reiterate, we hear that voice and encourage you to continue to organize and continue to work with your council people. But I would just caution this body on making a decision that's going to drastically impact 35% of the city based on one zip code's worth of comments.
Point of clarification, 38%.
38%.
It's closer to 37.
Somewhere. You guys can arm wrestle about it later. But any other?
Madam Chair?
I want to comment on that just a little bit.
Okay.
Madam Chair? Sorry.
No, go ahead,
I can't
Coco.
wait.
You can go ahead and go, Hill.
No, I just, in response, I didn't want to take us commissioners off the hook because I also was talking about the horizontal split, thinking about when we looked at the home prices and the median income. So while I do agree with Commissioner Rucker, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just because of those voices or just them, but there were commissioners that also weighed into that, and I didn't want us to be let off the hook, when people are unhappy. And it wasn't just community, it was us too. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, I was going to say that I also said that this is not a New England town hall type of situation where we call the community together and bring everybody in and hear what the people said, and whoever had the biggest group or take a vote that way to make a decision. This is a democratic republic, a republic system where we are democratically appointed and selected to exercise our own judgment based upon all the information that we gather. And I think we give weight to the fact that, a number of people came out on both sides with respect to that map. But we have to look at not the numbers who came out, but what the essence of their message is. And so I know You just can't go by who had the time to come out or who took the time to log on. All of those perspectives are important. But we got to exercise our own judgment based upon all the data, including some of the data that Keith has just referenced, including the comments that the people came in and made, including the stuff that I'm getting from the politicians up there. As a matter of fact, I'm having lunch with some this week to talk about that, probably about that same issue. So people are reaching out, bringing us a lot of different information. We have to synthesize it and make a decision that we think is best for the city.
Yep. I think we just want to make sure that the information that's being put out there is being synthesized through through a lens that has all the facts that are out there. And I don't want it to seem, especially to the people who are listening, that the ball is moving. That first it was public comment, and then it was a decision, and then it was a Democratic Republic and some other stuff. So I just wanted to put all of that out there and make sure it was on the record and people understood what we see, and then everybody has their opinion and can make their decision.
Other comments? Commissioner Notice?
I'd just like to reassure people listening, and especially those who did take time to come out to the meeting, that I think most of us see this as a balance of a lot of conflicting issues. And for me, I think the overall effect for the next 10 years for the whole city is what's kind of driving my vote, I think. And so I just think as we keep working around the edges on this to get it as good as possible, I think it's all one city. So how these things affect all one city or not they do affect the whole city. They're not just somebody's district, and you can't change anything about it. Obviously, south of the river, that can't happen. And I guess I'm still looking for the main reason. I still don't understand the reason for the vertical split over the horizontal. I've been trying to track what you guys have been saying and what the public's been saying, but I still don't quite understand. When there was just one district north of the river, it was both counties. And then you just kept growing farther north, so I don't know how it ever got split down county lines, but I don't quite understand.
Well, that was
I don't think that was strategic, but maybe it was.
20 years ago. There's a lot of different tools that are utilized now. Using the Platte County Special Roads District is one. Creates an issue potentially there for just additional obstacles and things of that nature. I mean, I can go. I don't know. It doesn't. I'm not gonna. I'm good.
Well,
it's okay.
When there's time, I'd like to hear more detail about what
it's all in
that
here.
means.
It's been expressed by people outside of me, and this is who I'm representing, are the folks that are providing comment.
That doesn't explain the benefit. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I've explained the obstacles that it creates. But
okay, well then maybe I was sleeping during that part.
I looked at the comments, and I guess maybe we're going to have a debate. I guess we're going to probably boil down to, at some point, we're going to be choosing between, I guess, 8.4.2 and
An iteration of 4 and 6. Yep.
Yeah, between those, and at that point we'll make I guess we'll have a discussion and a debate on them. And at that point, I'm still like Vicky and others. I'm still trying to hear the human, the person impact, the human implications, how it can affect the representation of individuals. I heard that from the people advocating for the horizontal. I haven't heard that from the vertical people. All I've heard is about obstacles to development.
No, that's not what I said.
Or concerns about county culture from Clay and Platte. So then I read over. I didn't get a chance to finish them, but I read some of the comments that we got today. Online, and it's basically repetitive of the same thing. And I certainly have rejoinders for most of those, based upon the testimony that we've received and some input. I'm looking forward to hearing from. I've received some calls from economic development interests up there in the Northland, asking me to listen to what they have to say and to reconsider. And I'm certainly receptive to doing that because I want to make an informed decision. But at some point, let's get to the brass tack and let's discuss and debate.
Agree.
Debate the issues.
Agree.
Hopefully do that next week, I guess.
Agree. And Commissioner Adams, I do want to recall the last meeting where I explained the people side of these things, whereas it creates division, it does not create inclusion. It creates division not only at socioeconomic levels, but also the inclusivity of the entire Northland. It also creates obstacles in people groups of being able to work together towards common interests. Such things as PIAC funding, things of that nature, creates obstacles. I went through all that last week. I'm not going to rehash it again.
Yeah.
There's no point in wasting our time here if there's other comments.
Well, what I will say is that throughout this time, this is what you all have been bringing your debate. I've surely heard your different points of view. So I don't want anybody holding their breath for next week as we move into deliberation, that we have been having a progressive process where we've been able to listen, synthesize, and make, and Commissioner Zamora, you talked about it, these incremental decisions that have gotten us to this point. And the reason why we move towards incremental decisions so we can monitor and adjust. And we've been able to monitor and adjust throughout this process as we started September the 8th, in listening, providing things for the community to react to, us listening to their response, and us adapting based upon what we have heard and what we have synthesized through our data process. So please don't hold your breath to share your debate points. I've actually heard really compelling points from each of our commissioners. But once again, it comes down to how you choose and how we have collectively chosen to this point. It was through a voting process that we got to 8.4 and 8.6 in some iteration of it. So I'll remind all of those who either have joined us or have been with us that we have moved through deliberation and consideration and gotten to 8.4, some iteration of 8.4 and some iteration of 8.6, which is why we're taking the time for Cal and Brian to walk through this with us. It sounds like we have some additional tweaks as we prepare, and we don't have to use all of our time. I'm happy to give you all time back, and we can conclude our session. But as we move towards next week, which our meeting will be Monday, not Wednesday, Monday, November the 22nd from 4 to 6 on the 10th floor here in our council room, we'll move into final deliberation where we will plan to take a vote where each commissioner will be able to offer one vote. We will do that after we hear any final, receive any final revisions from Cal and Brian and team. For us to consider, where we'll be able to share our thoughts again. So receive what Cal and Brian have come up with, share any thoughts or considerations, and then we'll move into our vote. If it is possible, ideally we'll be able to take that vote that will lead us to one map that we will recommend, and therefore we will use our December 1st time, which then resumes back on a Wednesday, to really make sure that each commissioner is able to submit and articulate what their key thoughts are for the presentation that they want to make sure is highlighted. So that's our upcoming schedule. And once again, either December the 7th or the 8th, or I'll just say the week of the 6th. The week of the 6th, we'll have our presentation. It looks like to the committee. That we will then be able to talk through and share the rationale and community considerations. Any other question or comment? Cal, Brian, anything? Yes?
So we actually have a little bit of time to make these changes. So I just want to make sure that we're making the ones that you want. We don't have a whole lot of time if we get new ones in between the week. So Pedro, we're going to take the stuff that you're going to send us. Yep. Based on comments on Royal Oaks, it looks like it's out.
Yes.
Please correct me if I'm wrong.
That is what I'm hearing.
Southmoreland and South Hyde Park are going to be in the 4th district. That's correct?
That is what I heard.
Okay. Beyond that, things will stay relatively similar other than trying to work through, see if there's a way to manipulate some of the boundaries to get those tracks in there. Or those
census blocks, too.
Those blocks, yes.
And let me ask you about that. If we keeping Southmoreland and Hyde Park together in the 6th, in the 4th, can you do that with making these adjustments that Pedro talked about earlier in 3?
No.
Whenever we do that, we're
going to see.
We'll show you the implications
Yeah,
of. We currently are showing what it looks like if they're in. When we add any new blocks in there, if something needs to fall
Yeah.
out, we'll figure out the right ones to fall
Okay,
out.
but it looks like if you take those out, you're gonna make 3 light, right? If we don't put anything back in.
That was the consideration that I wanted to,
Right, you can
to
go
offer
to
you
others.
all,
Right.
yes.
So it likely, as we said, gets you really close to what 1.2 looks like, which does means 3 has to creep down towards
Okay,
5.
and I'm saying that right now, I think, I know I am, and I know Keith is, we're opposed to third district going further south.
That is correct.
Got it.
Okay, let me make that clear. So if you take those out without testing those spots, that's fine, but if you can't do that, we're okay with this, at least I'm okay with that configuration.
Yeah, and the whole thing we're trying to do is to get the Hispanic
That's right.
population as high as we can. Hopefully, we can do that.
We're gonna
without-
test out
without taking us
Pedro's
out.
Yeah.
consideration. We're gonna test out Pedro's
All right.
consideration, recognizing that the way this is where there is the most agreement, understanding this is a collection of compromise, to not go past our current southern line, to see if there are some more. But like I said, the likely outcome of it is that 3 is going to be very light, which is not. But we want to test out what our commissioner will take time to send us.
Yeah, I don't know do you know how many people you're talking about?
There's 3 census blocks, and we're gonna go through them real quick. I'll visit with you. There's
Alright.
3 census blocks that are predominantly Latino. And,
Okay,
That are currently in 3.
currently in 3, yeah.
currently in
you-
3.
And
But you're talking about 1,000 people?
Right
2,000?
around
Okay.
Right in that 1,000. 1,800. I was trying to pull it up. I couldn't.
That'd
pull
take
it
us
up
down to 83,000.
That is correct. And
Mr. Adams, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you can go ahead, Commissioner.
Sorry, thank you. I just don't see, I know I'm not there, so I'm looking at the maps on my phone, but I'm not sure how that's gonna be possible with you not being able to add any, folks from the 5th. I mean, we can go down to that 51st or the 53rd, but I don't think that that's a move you wanna make. I think that will decrease, I don't think it will increase the African-American, representation.
I think you're
And
right.
that's the only wiggle room that we have to give.
I think you're right, I think you're right, and so, all right. Well, no, we'll wait and look at it and
Yes.
see, but
So one other thing I think you'll want to consider is there a max population for any of the districts? Likely 4 will get close to whatever that number might be. So just when we bring it back, we'll bring that back up. A lot of stuff to remember, but
And my general consensus, my general opinion is, that's not a good outcome. Making 4 heavy going in is just not a good outcome. 'Cause I know what's on the horizon downtown with these apartments that are in development. They're not included in the census. So 4 is going to be heavy before the next election. And so I just have some concern about that. So
I would just like,
I don't mind 3 being heavy. Like I said, I don't mind 3 being heavy. But if you can do it, and make 3 heavy, that's fine. But I don't know how you do that and make 3 heavy. So.
Commissioner Rucker?
I would just like to raise the point that the same thing on the horizontal map would be true in the 1st district as the 4th, in the point that you were just making, Commissioner Adams.
And I would say, thank you, Commissioner Rucker, because I actually believe it'll be true for either 8.4 or 8.6. We already
Right,
know 1, 2, and 4 will be, I mean, there is, we talked about the possibility of perhaps leaving those anticipated districts a little lighter, right? Well, so once again, something that was important, but when we begin to balance out all the priorities, it ended up getting pushed down because those other priorities rose up. So I think that's an important consideration, Commissioner Rucker, that 1, 2, and 4 will be that probably for either configuration. So I think that's very important and true.
And so I don't think we'll be able to keep anybody light. Doesn't look like. I don't think. But,
Well, there's maybe a 500 to 1,000 person wiggle room in
Where?
1 and 2, or
In
in 1 on 8.42 at least.
on 8.42.
Yeah, but 2 is
And if-
heavier.
Yeah, 2 is already over.
Yeah, but
So,
it's
not sure what you're going to say, but
it's not over as much as 4, which I think is going to grow faster. So if it's only 1,000 people or so that make a difference, then I think that would help everybody. I'm not sure it's fair to keep 1 and 2 light if you can't keep 4 light.
No, we can't do that.
Oh no, I wouldn't advocate for that either. It just sounded like it was a point being raised to leave 4 light and not 1 and 2. So I just wanted to
I would never, no.
just wanted to make sure.
If it helps
The
solve
point
the
was
problem,
raised.
it'd be good. If it doesn't solve anything, then we need to decide.
It doesn't look like it's going to solve anything
whether it's,
to me.
I just don't know if we can get I don't know how much we got to go to get from 22% to, what's your goal, Pedro, 24%?
The goal was to adjust you to 55% on the third district.
Right.
And
So,
what-
which
Read
would
my
have brought
numbers.
us, which would have compensated us to about somewhere in that 23%.
I'm all for doing that, but not to.
The assumption
not
is
to
that those
light.
two things go hand in hand, but we will see.
Correct.
Right.
I wanna acknowledge that we will take in that consideration. We'll be able to bring that back. At this point, I think we've heard, and I appreciate you all's considerations about this. I do want to go back to the fact that the commissioners were offered a closed session and want to to pose that to the commissioners if you feel like that is necessary. If there's any other legal questions that you all want to hold in close, we would be open for a motion.
Not go into closed session, but I would like to make a statement that
Please.
in both the maps that we're looking at, horizontal and vertical, it's a compelling story that integration of our city is so important as we start looking for opportunities across all districts. Minority opportunity districts, 4th district is it. It's integrated. And whether it's 19%, 25% Latino, we know we have to address and educate our voters on representation. And we know our city council is going to have to move forward and make a decision on future commissions to study the growth of the city. It's not fair to 1st, 2nd, or 4th as we continue to grow with restrictions. But that's where we're at today. I run the numbers here and I look at what an integrated district looks like for minority opportunities, and it's not just one Latino group, it's representation of all the immigrants and refugees that are in that district. So I just want to thank you all for having that as a consideration.
And that's a really great point for me to close out on. And once again, thanking everyone for sharing your considerations. Want to remind that it not going exactly the way you want is not the same as not being heard. And that's for all of us on all sides. And so just wanted to note that. And also, Commissioner Zamora, in one of the points that you were saying, I think this goes back to the importance, and we will add it to our report of really thinking through the councilmatic makeup and the council reviewing the charter. We've said that just about at every commission meeting, and I think it's worth saying it at the remaining sessions that we have. And so we'll offer that as well as being short of a Band-Aid response to how we really get to better representation, which ultimately I think that systems change is necessary. And then the last thing I want to lift up is how this commission will continue to be committed to the qualitative and the quantitative data that we have been synthesizing that has guided this process. So thank you all for your testimonies, but also the leveraging of the quantitative data has been really helpful to get us point as well. So any other final thoughts before we adjourn our time and give you back 37 minutes? You're welcome, Rucker.
I always appreciate it.
Okay, so with that, and we see no need to go to close, we'll call this session to a close at 5:24. Thank you all.